We're joined by Phil Bennett now on Mondays at 5 to kind of look back and ahead, college football. Coach, thank you very much for your time. What were your thoughts about what Georgia Tech was able to do to shrink the game and pound the rock against Florida State?
Well, as you could tell, it was definitely a winning combination. I happened to run into John King and his son this summer, Daryl Dickey, who used to coach at A&M and recruited King. His daughter got married, and he told me, he said, we're going to be so much better on defense. And I think they were. And he said, if we can just play a little bit better defense, he said, I think we'll give them problems offensively. And they sure did. I mean, it was a great game plan, and they stuck with it.
Coach, have you been a part of a team where there's been a big offseason of just, like in Florida State's case, it wasn't hype. It was just a lot of complaining about what had happened the year prior and getting all caught up in that and all this big talk, and then you come right out of the gates and boom, you're handed a loss. Like, how deflating is that? Have you been a part of that scenario, or have you seen that up close and personal?
Well, we had that situation at Baylor when we won the conference in 2014, thought we were going to get in, and then we got jumped, and even though we'd beaten TCU, they moved them ahead of us.
Right.
But we ended up not getting in, and the last team in, who was Ohio State, got hot and won the thing. And then, that's as close as I'd been. But, one of the things, and I know Mike, and I know he's a good coach, you learn in this business, less is more. When things don't fall your way, you got to move on. And if you're constantly worried about the past, then your future becomes affected. Now, I'm not saying that was the case. One of the things I can tell you is the team that had the best quarterback won the game. I see a reason why the quarterback left Clemson, why he left Oregon State. He's not as good as what Mike was playing with last year at quarterback. So, I think probably what you're saying with all the talk and mad at this person, mad at that person, could have got him in trouble.
Phil, if you had to go in and fix them for a week, I mean, obviously their defensive line got mauled too. DJU is going to be who he is. I mean, they've got to make him a little more fearless because that's what they had a year ago. But how would you fix them in a week?
Well, first of all, they got to run the ball better. They ran the ball good early, and they abandoned it. They thought they were skillful enough to take the shots. I say take the shots. The throwing the outside games, the nows, the bubbles. I think if I remember right, Paul, they had one vertical throw and they got an interference on it. They really didn't throw the ball vertically downfield against Georgia Tech, and you're not going to win many games when you're a spread offense if you don't throw the ball vertically. Now, it's obvious to me they were missing Coleman and a couple of their other receivers and their running back. They didn't create the matchup that they thought they could beat Georgia Tech with. And so what you got to do is say, this is what we're capable of. The quarterback is not a mobile guy. He's not a guy that's going to extend plays. So you better be getting the ball out of his hands, and you better be not asking him to do something he can't do. And defensively, you've got to play the run better. Missed tackles, which is common in the first game, but also fitting them better. There was too many plays. If you remember, the last play before the field goal was a 15-yard now that gave them plus 15 to kick that field goal. And that you can't have those. Art always considered those when we threw the now game out there. It's like tall sweeps, and they couldn't make the play out there. So they've got to secure that, and then they got to get going. I don't see them being the team that they were last year.
No, that's pretty obvious. Yeah. Obviously, the quarterback himself. I mean, Jordan Travis was special, and they had NFL picks on the defensive line, and of course other players too.
The transfer portal
the receiver. was phenomenal.
Oh,
the
absolutely.
transfer.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Phil,
Coleman, I think his name was.
Yeah, Keon Coleman. The transfer portal doesn't just magically fix things. If you lose like 4 defensive linemen, you'll get 4 in the portal. Doesn't mean the defensive line's as good as it was last year, no matter where they came from. I feel like that's something we're still kind of learning in this era of college football. Is the transfer portal can do wonders, but it's not a give me everything.
You know, that the running back from Alabama that they were all touting, you know, he didn't have the effect that Saban thought he would have in the game. And the receiver, you know, I just think that, as we said early in the conversation, I think Georgia Tech had a mindset, hey, this is what we have to do to win this game. And they went in, gave up a quick touchdown, never lost their composure, and just kept grinding. At halftime, you know, a lot of people said, well, you know, this is going to be the second half. Florida State, you know, it never happened. You know, they got the ball first, and if you remember, they didn't get a first down. So Florida State got the ball right back, and then they just got back in their groove. And I really liked, you know, the coordinator at Georgia Tech had been a guy that a lot of people felt like should have got named the coordinator at Georgia. He had been an analyst at Georgia, and they really liked him. His name's Faulkner, and he's really a good football coach. And you can tell the head coach has a lot of confidence in him.
You mentioned halftime and kind of what people expected in the second half. As someone who has been in hundreds of them, how much actually can be accomplished at halftime during that time? Because it's lengthy in college. And how much are those notebooks on the sideline going to help?
You know, I'm not sure about that. I think that visually, if you can see some things at halftime, that would help. That you could say, all right, this is the split. You know, instead of drawing it. You know, I'm so old. You know, I'm back in the chalk days, Smokey. But yes, I think it would help some. But halftime adjustments are crucial. I mean, once you know what a team is trying to do, what they're doing to you, you better have some answers. And you know, like I said, I don't think Florida State, either side of the ball, really got in a groove of what they thought they could do to stop. You know, Haynes King, when you only have to throw the ball 12 times and you complete, I think he completed, 9 or 10 of them, but they were third down throws, and they had to pack the box, so it was making it a little bit soft in the back end. And I think Georgia Tech knew that, and in their adjustment, they stayed with it.
Phil, what did you think about SMU in their comeback against Nevada?
You know, I thought SMU, and I'm not saying this, they won't get better, but it's obvious that they came out thinking that they were going to dominate that game, and Nevada was ready to play. Now, in defense of SMU, you've got a whole new coaching staff. I had talked to a couple of people up there, and they were very concerned because they weren't sure what they were going to run defensively. They weren't sure about their portals. They weren't sure what they're going to do offense, defensively. And they ran into a buzzsaw. Had you know, the quarterback didn't play well early. They didn't run the ball the first half. I think they only averaged 1.3 or 1.4 yards a carry. Nevada did exactly what they could do. They kept running it, kept powering, making a couple of third down plays. SMU lost their composure on fourth down, gave them a first down, which kept a drive, a 15-play drive. Listen, I played at Nevada. When I was at SMU, I don't know if you looked at the score there, but they beat us 12-10 when Kaepernick was a quarterback. And they didn't score a touchdown on offense, not one. They threw it. I always laughed. I text Tate Wallace during the game. I said, Tate, they just showed your flare pass getting picked for a touchdown that won the game for him. But he didn't appreciate that.
Yeah,
but, you know, that was a place. Even, and you know, I think SMU, it's a small stadium. I have to applaud them though. I felt like they got it together enough and found a way to game. If y'all watched it, I didn't think they were going to win the game. At no point did I think they would come back and win it.
Yeah, it was looking super dicey. And then you just had Nevada obviously made a huge mistake when they were backed up on their goal line, and that helped open the door a little bit. But, yeah, SMU got very, very lucky.
Yes, they got lucky. You know, that's a game, and y'all will remember this. Do you remember when we played that Friday night game at ULM?
Yes, I was there.
That's what brought my attention. You know, I can remember. I'll never forget. I had lunch with Art last Thursday, and we were rehashing all day old things. I said, "I'm still mad at you." He goes, "What are you mad about?" I said, "I'm mad about us. I told you we should have never got on that plane that Friday instead of going on Thursday. He didn't want to stay in Monroe." I said, "Too many things can happen." Well, I don't know if y'all remember it, but we go out to the airport and something's wrong with the plane. And hell, we barely get to the game. We don't eat pregame, and it was helter-skelter, and it was Duck Dynasty Day for them, and they were drunk, and they were ready to party. and they were good. They had some good players.
Yep, they were. That was a dicey. Now, that was dicey. That game was.
Hell yeah.
I mean,
that's what I felt like that SMU might have ran into.
Let me ask you this. As a head coach, there's pressure. More now maybe than ever before, but there's pressure 50, 70, 80 years ago. In reference to someone like a Ryan Day at Ohio State who's got this incredible talented team, or someone like Dave Aranda at Baylor who needs to win, can, other than the obvious pressure of being a head coach, can the legitimate heat of your future and job affect how you coach on game day?
Oh, absolutely. We're human. Yeah. Smokey, you know that. Yeah. Now, you know, Ryan Day, I can tell you right now, all they want to talk about is his $20 million season. It's a $20 million payroll. If he doesn't win the Big Ten in the playoffs and win it, it's not going to be a good season for him. And that is pressure, you know, a different kind of pressure. You know, Dave Aranda's pressure is, hey, they started off good. You know, at 21, they won the league, and then it's been in a decline since then. Can he restart it? You know, his restart will be, I mean, if they could go 7-5, in my opinion, from what I saw a year ago, that would be a really successful season for them.
Coach, really big game coming up this weekend, Texas A&M and Notre Dame. It's huge, obviously, for a lot of reasons. And Mike Elko getting to debut in grand fashion. Know you're very well connected down there. What's just kind of the feeling around College Station about this team and about this game coming up?
There's a lot of excitement. You know, a lot has been made about Elko being a defensive coach. You know, Colin Klein is running the offense. I think that he has a lot of Bill Snyderism, which, you know, he creates holes. He creates things on offense that are O-line friendly. They've struggled a little bit on the O-line here. Defensively, they feel like they're loaded. Now, you look at Notre Dame, and Notre Dame, statistically, defensively, is supposed to be really, really good. They've got Riley Leonard. I think it's got the makings of a big-time game. It's going to be interesting if A&M, their quarterback, Weigman, he's been, you know, at times he's been very effective, struggle staying healthy, and at times he hadn't been effective. They lost their number one back in Reuben Owens, kid from El Campo, so they got other kids. So it's going to be a heck of a matchup. I know this. There's going to be 112,000 people there, and it will be one of the biggest games I think A&M in the last 30 or 40 years has played opening day. So it's got a chance to really be a good one.
Well, yeah, there's going to be 100,000 plus night game, 6:30, although it's not night yet, but that place. What was it like to coach in that environment? What was it like to play in that environment?
You know, I just had Kirk Bowles and Brent Zerman call me last week, and they said, we think you would be a great guy to talk about the A&M Texas series. And he said, because you both played and you coached in that series. And I was telling them about, playing at Kyle Field. And in 1975, we played Texas. And, Dave, you can remember this. We had just been a co-ed school for a couple of years. So they had pretty much dominated the series. I was lucky. We split my 4 years in college. We split with Texas. And their players used to always tell us, "Your fans." He said, "We have good fans," but I think it was probably because of the closeness of the fans. But A&M fans are loud. They're into the game. They always make fun of the Yale leaders, but there's not much. I've been fortunate enough to coach at almost every major stadium in the country, and I don't think it gets much better than this. And I think that the fans stay in the game. I mean, they're organized to stay in the game. And I think that Notre Dame is used to that. I don't think they'll be intimidated, but I think it will be a little bit of a different environment than, say, going to Michigan. I thought when we played Michigan, I played them, I coached against them. Michigan is a huge place, but it's not as raunchous as Kyle Field is.
Bill Bennett with us on 365 Sports during football season in the 5 o'clock hour.
Coach, my dad was class of 1965 at Texas A&M, and I remember asking him when I was a kid, why do they have such organized yells? And he said, well, to keep us in the game. He's like, when he was in school in the 60s, they used to kiss on first downs, and you didn't want to see the stadium if they actually kicked a field goal. It got kind of dirty in there.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
And, I told this guy the other day, these writers were telling me this, and I didn't really know the exact numbers, but I went to A&M 50 years ago when I started playing. And I think the last 50 years of A&M Texas, it's like 25-25. I mean, it's a dang good rivalry. A&M was quit being a long time ago being the little brother. And so what they've done now, what people here all think they've been underachievers. They've had in those 50 years, there's been 2 championships, 75 and 98. So it's been a long dry spell. So it'll be interesting.
Yeah, 98, that double overtime classic against K-State. That was the Michael Bishop Kansas State team that was probably going to play for a national title.
Fumbled, and Sir Parker, they ran a flare pass.
Yep, absolutely.
The game was in St. Louis.
Kansas State fans saying, thank you for all the time you spent with K-State and also with Bill Snyder. He wanted to know, when you watch what they do with Chris Kleiman, they're steady, they win, they still kind of have that same mentality that Snyder built when you were there and then built it again. What do you see from K-State and who they are?
Well, they're very much what I think Bill did. They recruit well. They're like we were at Baylor. I thought we did this. We evaluated well and we developed. And that's what K-State does. And that's what we did at Baylor. I mean, and I think that when you play them, I watched them against North Carolina State last year in their bowl game. And they've got a quarterback. They always find a quarterback that it has ability and a skill guy. Their young freshman quarterback last year, North Carolina State was like a top 5 defense, and he shredded them. And I think if they get the guys back, everybody healthy this year, they will be a team. Everybody's talking about in the Big 12 about Utah, Kansas. Listen, Kansas couldn't beat them on a bet right now. They're going to have to prove they can beat K-State.
All right. One of the last times we hit.
Love it. Couldn't beat them on a bet.
That's going to go viral.
It is.
That's going straight to Lawrence.
Yeah.
Hey, listen, I've had a hell of a record in Lawrence, so they can get mad at me. I'm not.
Hey, we brought this up.
Don't get me wrong. Hey,
yeah.
Don't get me wrong. I thought they'd done a heck of a job.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, with Lance Leipold, what he's done. We brought this up the other day.
I'm going to tell you something. Jeff Grimes is going to be watch what I'm telling you. Jeff Grimes is going to be a superstar up there. Watch. He undeserved blame.
All right, you think with what happened, someone had to go, and Dave now has fired a lot of coordinators, and you look around the room one of these days, and you're the only one left. You think that could be happening?
Absolutely. Now, listen, I've done this much longer than him. That's the way it goes. But my thing is this. We weren't at the level we were trying to get there. I let one coach go, one. And it was for something that I kept telling him, I want you to improve on. I couldn't get it done. But it's just the fact. I had a guy, they wanted me to get rid of a coordinator. I wouldn't do it. I told him, I said, am I going to do it? And it turns out he ends up goes to TCU, won championship. But, I just think that as I said, sometimes, and Jeff knew that. Jeff's the finest man that you'll ever. He just knew it was time to go. And when you get in this business, Dave, you and I both know it. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's not fair, but it has to happen.
No, Mac Brown did it when he started to kind of lose a little traction. Even when they were good, they were going through a lot of guys and they weren't just because they were moving on for better opportunities. So one of the last times we had you on, we asked you about Gary Patterson, and he decided that it was a mutual, apparently, decision. Whether it was or not, I don't know, about him moving on. And then Phil, 7-10 days later, he's back on the sideline at practice. Did you ever have a chance to visit with him?
No, I didn't. But I had people that talked to him. It was just, you know what? He's got a lot of things going. I think he still wants to coach. And he's got some other opportunities that possibly will come up after the season. And I think he just felt that he needed to have his ducks in order if, say, other jobs.
Right.
I've heard people say that he's definitely going to be a candidate at Arkansas. And I can see that. And I wouldn't be surprised, and I don't know this, if his agent didn't tell him. He said, you might, that could be a little bit risky, and you might want to just set this year out if you plan on getting back in it. And sometimes you're guilty by association. And I'm not saying that's going to happen at all.
Right.
But you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, if he stayed the whole year, Baylor wasn't good. Well, we're not going to hire anybody from that Baylor staff, right? We can't sell that to our people, especially given the amount of money, they're going to be throwing at another football coach. Yeah, that absolutely happens. It's never fair either, because it's not an assessment of a guy's entire career.
Absolutely,
it's an assessment of the now.
Yeah. All right.
You mentioned early, David.
Yep.
People, because of the pay and the amount of money they're spending, whether it's Baylor, Arkansas, it doesn't matter. If you look at A&M, they're paying a guy $77 million not to coach.
Mm-hmm.
He's making more than the head coach is here, Elko. Now, how crazy is that? How would you ever think that's right? But with that said, the urgency to win is now. And you better be good, and you better earn your money, or you're going to be gone, and they will find the money to get rid of you.
Yeah.
I mean, Jimbo Fisher. Yeah. Ask Jimbo Fisher.
Mm-hmm. Phil, if you don't mind me asking, you coached a lot of places. A lot of times when you moved on, it was because you could and other people wanted you, but it's part of the business that you get fired or things change. And I'm not talking about even the transition of 2016 at Baylor. But you were at SMU, you were Oklahoma, you've been everywhere. When you leave, and if a staff changes, were there times you didn't even know where you were getting money from other places and programs when you were somewhere else? How does all that work out? Is that complicated?
Yeah, it is complicated. Back when I was coaching, Grant Taft was head of the coaches, and he was so good. He pushed for June to June contracts, and what that did, if you got let go in December, that gave you 6 months, to have something, to find something.
Yep.
And I'm telling you, Grant Taft fought like crazy with the old CFA, with Chuck Niners, to do that for coaches. And let me tell you something. I've been fired at Pittsburgh. When I was at Pittsburgh, now I could have stayed there, but we were 8-4 and tied for the Big East championship. I mean, there's so many situations that coaching has nothing to do with it, that you're done with. The situation, take it Baylor. I mean, we finished 15. We're thinking 16, we might have a chance to win the national championship. And then the situation happened there. So many coaches don't have, I mean, you have zero control of your career. I mean, other than your personal, how you handle things. I laughed when I went to Baylor. I wanted a contract separate from the head coach because that had become the deal.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the way it is. And I remember the assistant kept coming in to sign the contract, and I told him, I said, I'm not signing it because one of my things that I said, I want a personal service contract. And he goes, we've never done. I said, well, they know I want it. They agreed to it, and I got it. But it does become complicated. When I left, I had 3 years on I think 2 or 3 years on my contract, and I hadn't done anything wrong. So yeah, it becomes complicated.
So you had 3 years or 2 years left. You left. The entire staff was gone, and in comes the Matt Rule staff. Were you paid by Baylor in one chunk? Was it over time, and then you get the job at Arizona State?
It was over. Let me tell you, that's the one thing that I appreciated about the AD. I mean, he was fair, and I went down. Of course, I went in, and we had. Listen, he inherited a bunch of butthurt coaches. It was a rough. And when I write my book, it's going to be a full chapter. I mean, he inherited a mess. He's hearing the things, and as I told him, I said, don't believe everything you hear. And I didn't know him well. I mean, we had some conflict, and then we had some agreement. And I was trying to help him keep that thing going. And then when I think I was the only one that got a Power 5 job out of it. And I had a chance. I mean, I had been offered like 3 jobs. I knew Todd, and I told him, I said, I'm going to, I didn't want the money that I was making at Baylor. I was making quite a bit more.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, I'm going to take this much money. And I told Mac. Mac agreed. I said, Mac, I need you to write me a letter that I was not involved in. Everything was, you had to be cleared. I mean, I had to be vested and everything, and he did a great job, and really, really helped me, and I greatly appreciate it, and still do.
And then, but when you got paid by Arizona State, did that offset whatever Baylor owed you?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Just
It
wanted.
was an offset.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
But I also had a deal that if I left after a year, and so we decided. I think what happened, we decided to go ahead and maybe pay everything out that first year.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what we did.
Okay. All right, it's here, football season. We saw the Georgia Tech win. We saw SMU find a way, and that's the bottom line. And now West Virginia, Penn State, Notre Dame, A&M, Clemson, and Georgia, and a bunch of others.
Yeah.
Golly, can't wait. Phil, thank you very much for your time. We appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
All
Phil
right.
Bennett with us on Mondays in the 5 o'clock hour.